Welcome everyone to another episode. It's Annalena here, your host, and I'm super happy to have my amazing guest and friend and colleague, Tarah Belle, here with me again. This is our third time. I was just saying that's a charm. So welcome, Tara.
Mm. Thank you for having me back for a third time on the podcast. You know, I love being here and I love chatting. It's always so much fun.
Yes, right. And for those of you that are new to Tara, so we met a couple-ish years ago through the online space, I think Instagram, how I found you.
Yep.
And you were part of a summit that we did back then together with Miranda. You were a beautiful manifesting generator sharing your story. And yeah, we have been connected ever since. Tara is a beautiful human design reader. She has an amazing following. She's posting so much fun, beautiful, inspiring content about human design. Definitely check her out. And you live in Mexico and Canada, right? I think you part half and half.
Yeah, lately it's been that way, mostly in, Mexico and Canada, where I'm from, which I just got back to a couple days ago for summer to visit family and friends. And yeah, so I'm going through an inner journey because, I don't know if you feel that way. And this is something I talk about with human design clients, like the G Center. It's all about like that sensitivity to environment
Yeah.
and having it undefined. I mean, my experience has always been when I travel and even when I go somewhere new, even if it's going back to the place I'm from, it is the biggest inner journey ever. The feelings, the experience, it's a wild ride and it can be like emotional and all those things. I think everyone experiences that, but it's very cool. It's fun. It's exciting.
Yeah, I can definitely. I mean, I have a defined G center, but I also feel different in different spaces. And recently I read this somewhere because we always say like, well, it always is how you feel from the inside, right? And but I also have to say your environment also impacts. I think it does go both ways because I can be in a situation and feel completely off, and without doing a lot of inner work, I can be in a different situation and I feel totally different, right? So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think I don't know. Maybe that's its whole own conversation, but there's definitely something to do with environments that it affects your experience of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I recently had a amazing guest also on my podcast. So we talked about interior design. I love, oh my God, you probably too, interior design. And I love pretty things. I love aesthetics, even when it comes to my business and my website. It's probably the 2-4 in my tropical chart. The beauty, right? It's something extremely important. Also, when I make purchasing decisions. Like, it has to be pretty. There's something with me that is just very, very important. And it creates, I think it creates a frequency, right? How things are put together. Also, the love is that put, like if you decorate a room, for example, right? I think the energy that was put in there from the person that did it is also super important. And you specialize with environment and human design, right? You call yourself an environmental guide, I think.
Yeah, I made an environment guide and I love environment. It's one of my favorite parts of like the variables in human design, which I haven't studied the other variables too much. It's just been environment that
Yeah.
I've personally loved. That's why I made the guide for it. And I find that so fun. And I think it's because I have found that to be the most sort of impactful for me personally. So yeah, for sure. I think environment is so significant and it's a really cool thing to play with if you haven't yet, even your human design environment, because yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I love that. Now we're gonna talk a lot about money today, but right now I have another follow-up question on the environment. So, do you find that you play with different environments for yourself, or like only the one that you have per your human design chart?
Well, I think that's an interesting question because my environment in human design is shores,
Hmm.
shores artificial technically. And the reason this was so significant to me is because throughout my childhood and life, before I knew about human design, I was always perching myself on the ledge of things or in between environments, which is exactly what shores is. It's where two different environments come together. And I always remember craving to be like in corners by the window and in like my parents had this giant like sort of window ledge in their home. It was like a foot wide or longer, and I would put pillows on there and perch, and I would always just want to be in between whatever two environments it was, even if it was like between the driveway and the grass. Like there was something about where two different kind of environments came together, even like the gutter on the street where the water would run down, just
Mhm.
stuff like that, like always craving that. And
Mhm.
just learning about how exactly that was pretty much the shore's environment and human design. There was nothing I had to do to change my life because I was already loving that, but it just helped. It was just fun for one, and two, it's kind of reaffirming. And three, like now that I'm an entrepreneur too, and I need a lot of mental focus, and I it helps me because when I'm not feeling grounded and I'm feeling a bit lost or unfocused, if I situate myself in a shore environment, even in my home, it just helps me to get to that clarity quicker and to feel grounded. And I
Mhm.
don't know, I love it. And I think it's such a helpful little life hack.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. Super cool.
Hmm.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put the link, go to Tara's website, right? I think that's how they can access the environmental guide for you guys if
Yeah.
you want to check it out further. Awesome. I love it. Perfect. So today we also want to talk a little bit more about money and business because Tara and I, we did a recent episode and we felt like we have more to talk about. And I think we both love to talk about money. And from my perspective, just sharing a little bit from my story, is that I it never was doing me a good service when I focused too much on just making money, right? While I also love money and I really had to work on my self-worth for money and owning that I would love to make more money, right? It's a natural evolution. So most of the money talk, I think that's out there just from our perception, right? This is not about judgment or anything like this, is often it's about, hey, I'm going to show you how I made X amount of money. And oftentimes we get really disappointed from those things because, yeah, that may have worked for one person. And I mean, per human design, we're all different, right? And
Mhm.
then it doesn't work for us. And so for me, that's a very inauthentic way, honestly, to grow a business because it's missing the point for me. It's like, am I in it for the money? Because if that's my main focus. So I learned the lesson for myself that anytime I put money on a pedestal or put money, the main reason why I do something, it backfired on me. So I really had to learn this lesson. And I just had to personally for myself to unfollow the energy where it was mainly about money. Again, not to make it wrong, but it's just not for me. It just doesn't do me good service in a way. I just always felt like it rather puts me back. And when I'm more in the energy of connecting, what are my unique gifts? What do I love to do? What do I feel passionate about? And really come from this genuine place of being of service and sharing my gifts with the world, money just magically starts to flow, you know? And I'm absolutely open to a quantum leap, but I also believe that if I'm meant to make millions or something like that, I want
Mhm.
to be ready for that. So I can hold this because I do feel when we start to make a lot of money, there comes a lot of responsibility with that because it's so easy, I think, to fall into the greed where we just want to make more and more money for ourselves. But I do believe in this world we live today, once we start to make a lot of money, it's also about sharing and letting the money flow into ways that are sustainable, that are good for Mother Earth, that are good for other people, and all of that. So that's just kind of a little backstory. So I would love to hear from you. Like, what has your relationship been with money? How
Yeah.
has this been evolving for you in your business?
Right. Yeah, this is a good question because I think when we first talked, when we had our last episode, the reason we had talked about money, I think, was because I was saying, Annalena, have you seen all of these like posts that seem to be trending these days that I've been seeing on Instagram from like coaches and entrepreneurs and even human design people? I've been seeing this like crazy. It'll just pop up on my feed like, yeah, now that I have a six-figure business or a six-figure year or month, or even like I think it was around that time I saw someone's thing post pop up that said, "This is how I made like a seven-figure month, year, or business," or I can't remember what it was. And I was just like, wait, first of all, what the heck? Like, all of these people posting about these are huge numbers. To me, these are huge numbers. I've never made that much money in my life at once. And also wondering why this is a trend and why people are so focused on talking about and bringing up the fact that like how much money they're making or stating these big numbers. I'm just wondering, like, I think it's such a hook, and maybe that's why people are using it is to like get people hooked or get people's attention or get people buying their services. But also just I have so many questions about this. And again, I don't know exactly how to state this, and it's not a judgment or anything like you were saying, but I do have a lot of practical questions. One, why is this being brought up? Two, what is the authenticity here? From the posts I had been seeing, I question how is that possible that in this business you made here that I see you've been making these numbers? I don't see how that adds up. And just a lot of questions around why is this the talk? Why is this normal? Why is this important? Why are you bringing this up? Why are we talking about it? Just I have a lot of questions about it. And I think I was telling you when I started this human design business, I just kind of quit everything I had. I was working in the national park, building trails. I didn't really have much savings. I just kind of had this idea from what I had been seeing. I'm going to quit all my jobs, just start this human design business, and there I go. I'll be totally fine. And I'm really proud of myself because I have made it work up until now. Yes, I've had a few side jobs along the way to help, but pretty much I've sustained myself, which is amazing. But it has not been six-figure years or months or even at all. It has not, like I told you, there have been many, many, many months of how am I going to pay rent next month? I don't know I've never done business. I have no experience in business. I don't know how to market myself. All of those questions. And it's been an amazing journey. I've learned a lot, and I'm grateful that I've been able to like make it work and have a lifestyle that supports this. But I have to say, it's not the way that everyone was putting it out there to be. Like you can be a human design reader and just it'll all work out and you'll make six figures, or you can be a coach, or you can be whatever, all these things I was seeing, that people were posting about. So I wanted to have a conversation with you, a real conversation about what does it actually look like? It doesn't look necessarily like always a six-figure business and everything's flowing and, am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such an important conversation because I think we can also, yeah, fall into the two extremes, right? We're gonna blame all these people, and that's why I really have to. That's why I think we both said, right? We don't want to judge any of this. I mean, we have both been observing it. It's in our life for a reason. It's something about us, right? That's the one thing I have always learned. Okay, if there's something, and I have to say, it used to trigger me in the beginning, and because there was a part of me that wanted that too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, yeah, who doesn't want to make six or seven figures, right? And that was really good for me because I realized that what I wanted from my ego wasn't really what I wanted. So that I could also be aware of like, okay, where my desires are coming from. Because I created this illusion that, oh, once I have all this money, like I'm gonna be all great and fulfilled. I'm gonna have the happiest life ever, you know? But I have to say that I always felt like empty energy there. And I was in a lot of containers, especially in the beginning of my coaching journey, where the hook to get me into it was money because I wanted it. There
Mm-hmm.
was a part of me. And also I was putting my self-worth onto it, right? It's like, oh, if I'm gonna make the six figures, then I can say I have a successful business. So it was really putting money on a pedestal in that sense. I became aware of that shadow within myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying they're in the shadow if that works for them, if that feels aligned for them. Like I have to say, like I disagree with it at this point. It's not aligned with what I want to create in this world. I spent a lot of money that I didn't have, and here in America, you have very easy access to credit cards, which I also fell for in this way, and I just used money I didn't have, right? And every time I was in a container, I had this pressure to make the money back. And often I invested so much that I not even close made the money back because it put me in such a nervous system dysregulated space, like in a freeze state where I just felt so much pressure. And as you know, when we come from offering anything because we need to make money, it doesn't really work well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now taking it further, I believe that you and I had to experience something like this, and we still see these posts, because I also do feel we have a responsibility to talk about it, to help people awaken to this and be aware. And for me, we are creating more of a gap in society when the people that already have a lot of money keep talking a lot about money, and the people that don't have money think what they want in terms of fulfillment is money. Then those that don't even have the money, they have more debt, many of them, and the one that already have more than enough, they keep making more. That's what logically seems to happen a lot. I have come to a point like, no, I think we really need to talk about this, from a place of let's be discerning and slow a little bit down to really check in with yourself. Like, is this program here that's promising you this linear process? Hey, I'm going to tell you the one secret, the one shift, or the one gate you have to uncover in your human design chart that's going to make you millions. I mean, let's think about this, guys. It's
Mm-hmm.
totally irrational, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like our mind wants to have the security that, oh, if I do this, it's cause and effect, right? That's the old paradigm, actually. If I do this, then this is going to happen. I want to have the certainty that if I do what this person did, which you, by the way, can never do what like the person did, because you're totally different soul, totally different energy, totally different background, and all of it. It's probably the smallest possibility that that exact thing is going to happen for you. Now, the other thing that I found really interesting, that's from the Gene Keys. The Pearl sequence has the pathway of growth. And Richard Rudd talks in there that growth does not rely on frequency. It doesn't matter what frequency we come from, we can still grow. So think about nature, right? Think about the agriculture we have where the soil is deprived. We're using pesticides, we're using genetically modified organisms. We can grow a lot from it, right? Like huge tomatoes, huge things that are very unnatural. And so also with money and corporations, we see this in the world. There are huge corporations out there that have billions of money, right? And dollars and all of that. But it's destroying the environment. It's very unethical work environments for employees that get burned out. Or people have, even though they have a full-time job, they still have to have two other jobs to just get by. That's very unhealthy growth.
Mm-hmm.
And we can have growth. Like, let's take you and I as an example, that I also think we have been incredibly successful, Tara, right? I haven't hit the six figures as I'm speaking this. And I'm honestly not like a big fan of like even talking about how much money I make. I mean, I'm always like, what's the point? But there was a time where I felt embarrassed about it and like, oh, people are gonna judge me. But no. But I'm so proud to say and happy, and like I have made it. And I was so scared to leave corporate at the time. And at some point, the universe made it happen for me, you know? And just like you too, whenever I needed money, I also had many months where, especially in the beginning, where I didn't know how I'm going to pay my rent next month or my mortgage, and where my next money is going to come from anyways. Because the reality is, once you don't have a paycheck from a company, I don't know who my next client is. I don't know who's going to book the next reading. I don't know what divine download I have to create a masterclass or a new program. I
Mm-hmm.
really, this, we are learning the biggest skill of all, to trust ourselves, to trust life, that we
Mm-hmm.
are supported. And that I think is priceless, actually, what we have been learning through this process. And I think if we would have made the big money right from the get-go, we would have probably become a little bit superficial, and we would just have cared about the money and not really connected as deeply to our heart and true mission in this world. That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And we are literally in this phase still, I think, of creating this super fertile soil, where we're just slowly and steadily, and think about the exponential curve, right? And math. It goes, you know how it looks, right? It goes super, super slow. It's almost like nothing happens in the beginning, and it keeps going super slow. And then at some point, when you least expect it,
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
So maybe we're right here. I don't know. Maybe we're here. We just need a whole lot more patience for 5 more years. Maybe it's only gonna be in 2 months, right?
Yeah.
But I think we're here to learn to trust life, to because when I always tell people like, okay, what's my business secret? It's my intuition, without a shadow of a doubt. When
Hmm.
I can really connect to my inner knowing, that's why the slowing down and pausing is so important. And I let life show you what's coming next. And also, of course, the responding has helped, I think you as well, right? Where, people ask us stuff. Hey, can you make this course again? Okay. Ooh, yeah, lights me up. Let's do this. Or, hey, are you gonna create a program about this? And then I respond to it. Like it's almost being served on a silver plate. And it's so much easier when I can lean into responding to life than trying to think, oh, how is my whole next year going to look like? I don't know about you. Do you plan your whole year for your business or the
Oh
next quarter?
no.
I mean,
I
maybe.
don't even plan my whole year, like where I'm gonna live. I don't even know where I'm gonna live in like 3 months' time. So how could I plan
Yeah.
my business, you know? And I think I knew that ever from the beginning when I first started this business. I remember being like, okay, I am not booking human design readings more than a month in advance. Like that's my limit. A month in advance is as far as I can plan. Because I knew that's kind of what worked for me. And I know that I life comes up with surprises and I like to be able to take them and not feel restricted by having too many plans, which is kind of why I
Mhm.
worked corporate for a little bit for a couple of years and I remember I think legally getting 10 days of vacation per year and to me that was just
Amazing, right?
while I'm there from like the whole, 7:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. every day, like 10 days off a year. Okay, that's wild. Whatever. But
Hmm.
no. Yeah, I'm not a big planner, but although I say that, and people probably think I have no idea, but I have feelings, I have inner visions, I guess, about where life is going to take me. And I've
Yeah.
always had that. I've always seen visions of places and kind of people
Mhm.
and situations, but I don't hold myself too attached to these things or what. So there is an inner compass always guiding me that I trust, and I kind of know when I'm on track and off track. But yeah, in terms of like concrete, like external plans, not so attached to those.
Yeah, that's exactly how I have been experiencing it. And in the beginning, when you start business and you hire business coaches, I mean, it's like what is your plan? What's your next 6 months? And I just felt off in my body. And I always thought, oh, there's something wrong with me. I have to make it work. But eventually I had the guts to surrender to my inner knowing and just like this planning thing doesn't work for me, you know? What I
Mhm.
can do is like, okay, my next week, I have a list of things like today, if you were on my, of course, I'm going to show up, we have a call scheduled in the calendar or I have a reading tomorrow and things like that. But I give myself the freedom to decide when I work on those things. Like,
Mhm.
oh, right now I feel like preparing for the reading. So I have found my flow within my things to do.
Mhm.
And I also feel like and I think that's the G center higher expression, if it's defined or undefined, right? Where you know where you're going, even though you don't know what the next steps are. But it's
Mhm.
this overall like knowing. And I have the same, like I could exactly like, oh, this is gonna come and then I'm gonna do this certification and then I want to write a book. But when is it gonna happen? I don't know. You know,
Mhm.
I also have learned that, because anytime, so I work less and less with coaches myself. I still do. But what I have noticed for myself, and I'm super curious if you feel the same, is that in the beginning, I always, because I bought into this, like, if you don't have a coach, who are you to be a coach, right? So I was like, oh, I better have a coach because otherwise I'm a hypocrite and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I started to notice when I'm working with a coach and also when the investment is kind of high, especially when it was more money than I could afford, which mostly was like high ticket at these days, right? That I felt this pressure and now I have to put this program out there and I have to do this. But the time wasn't ripe, right? It wasn't the time. And then I felt like I'm spending all this money and I need to, so I felt rushed. I think that's what I want to say. And now I have learned to be much more selective so I still, have also readings here and there when I feel this inner calling, because you know how helpful it is, like have somebody else intuitively look at your chart and reflect something back. And also very selectively here and there work with business coaches, but it can only be those where there is this like they help me to connect to my inner knowing, right? And really like point out my uniqueness and how I'm different from everyone else and really support that. And yeah, because even like recently I was in a program, and when I started it, I was like, oh, I'm going to work on this. But then I followed the flow of my life and something else became a priority. And I'm so happy that I gave myself the permission with that, because the bigger project that I thought I was going to work on, I started to become more clear that there are still some information that are coming into my field. And it's more now towards the end of the year. And that just feels right and aligned. And all of this is because I'm trusting myself. So there's less rush. There's no urgency, guys, right? It's like
Mhm.
I think actually when we rush, we slow down unnecessarily because we force it in the wrong direction, or we try to manifest things when the divine timing is not ripe yet.
Mhm.
Want to make it happen.
Mhm.
And then eventually everything recalibrates you back on your unique path. And I mean, who are we to decide also with the amount of money, right? I think that's all ego based, to be honest.
I just like that we're talking about it because from my experience, I mean, I grew up in Canada and I think Canada and the US are very similar. And I speak of this from a place of living in different parts of the world, like in Latin America and in Asia and a little bit in Europe, which is kind of, I guess, fairly similar to Canada and the US. Something I personally notice is that the topic of money is of great importance in these places. And I can actually speak from this week in particular. Like I had been living in Mexico since January. And of course, one thing as well about money is that, yes, practically there is a difference between, for example, a lot of people who grow up in places like Canada and the US and Europe are experienced with money versus, someone who grows up or who has access to different things, like in certain parts of the world, Asia or Latin America. Just, we have this topic and conversation of money means different things to people, but I'm speaking of it from a place of someone who grew up in Canada. I come back here and the amount of money conversations I've always already had with people or with friends, even this people bringing up things about their house or their mortgage or this or that or how well they're doing or just the topic of money comes up a lot, you
Mhm.
know, because it's of such great importance here. And not only from a place of like practicality, it's very expensive here and taxes are going through the roof and prices of everything are going through the roof and people need a lot more money to survive here. But also there's an ego part of money. And I'm at this age now where I'm like 32 and I'm really seeing where a lot of my friends have started making a lot of money and have owned homes, really expensive homes and cars and all these things. And I feel the gap so extreme because I'm like a basically just I'm like free soul nomad type of person. I don't own much. I do have a car and I have some belongings, but can pretty much fit them all in a backpack. And just the difference between also the energy around talking about money. For example, living back in Latin America with a lot of Latino friends and, just how the conversation is so different. It's more practical. It's like, how do we need to make some money? We need to afford food next week and this and that. And then coming here and people are talking more so about like massive investments and all these kinds of things. And I just think it's an interesting conversation. And I think people too, there's a lot more privacy around it, at least up here, like in Canada and in the US. When people talk about money, I feel like people talk about it, but there's privacy around it too, because I think when you have greater amounts of money, there is, like you said, certain amounts of like greed towards it, and I don't know how to put this into words. I was thinking of this last night, how I noticed that like my friends who have, let's say, no money or not a lot at all, like don't know how they're going to pay rent next month kind of friends are so much more open about talking about money and practically what are we going to do? I'm going to pick up an extra job here or there. And the ones that have a lot, they don't really say exactly how much they have and stuff. It's kept a lot more private. And I always wonder, is that because there's this certain responsibility that comes with it, or this fear that people are going to ask for some of it, or that you feel like you need to share it because deep down you have a lot more than you need. I don't know, I just think these conversations are cool and that we could all talk about them more because I think money is so important and I want money too. I'm not saying that at all that I don't. I just think it's really interesting, especially to travel around and be around different people and different like you know, financial sort of situations to see what people go through.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. And I think it's just important for us to observe how different it can be, right? Without judging it or because it really also depends the environment we grow up. So probably in Mexico it's much more common to yeah, casually talk about money and how to make more money and stuff like that. And also what I have recently learned about Kabbalah or through Kabbalah is that when it always comes with the intention, but when we talk about money with the intention to show off, we really easily attract negative energy, right? More jealousy from people and stuff like that. So it's definitely good, I believe, a good trait to be humble about it. And, so I think there's no right or wrong. I think we always intuitively know, like, hey, is me right now talking about money? Is this actually contributing to something? Or is this for me to get instant gratification from something so I feel great, so I feel like, oh, I'm the money queen or something like that? Because then I think it comes from an ego place with that, right? Also can be like when we have little money and we just complain, it's also more in a negative space, right? But when we come from a place of like an empowering conversation about it, I think it can add value, right? And definitely I think our intention here is with this money conversation to add value and feel actually comfortable to talk about money because like you say, it can be such a taboo topic. But then there
Mhm.
are also times where it's better not to talk about money, right? Just like we started with in the coaching space, I think would be much better off actually if there would be less talk about money, right? So
Yeah.
but how do we become aware of all of this? Through both extremes. We wouldn't
Mm.
even have this conversation if nobody would talk about money, right? Or everybody would avoid talking about money, or everybody would talk about money. So it's I think embracing these differences, and I think it's important for people to I think the big job with money is like how we feel about money, right?
Mm.
Because we can have a lot of money, but feel all the fear when it comes to money because we're scared to lose it, or we have created a lifestyle, like you were saying, right? And I totally get what you mean. I had this too when I was kind of your age. I'm 10 years older than you, right? So when I was in my early 30s, I was totally to like everybody already has a big house and I felt a little bit like a loser to be honest, right? Because I put myself in this like hierarchy kind of state. And with time, I have really learned that, wow, like there can be so much great value, which money cannot ever buy you when you actually follow your heart's calling. And
Mhm.
honestly, what you describe with like, I don't own many things. Yeah, I have a car, but I can pack everything up in like a backpack or suitcase. That's what in the Gene Keys is all about the simplicity. I mean, prosperity is highly linked to simplicity.
Mm.
So even like if you tune into this, it feels light, it feels expansive because the more stuff we have, and I know like Richard Wright calls this wealth, right? Wealth, according to the Gene Keys, is like accumulation of things. More,
Mm.
more, 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 more,
Mm.
which can create a lot of complexity, which already is a shadow frequency, right? And
Mhm.
because more money doesn't always mean more freedom at all. I think we always have this like, oh, I want to have a freedom lifestyle, which means making more money. But is that really what it is? Because oftentimes you make money, but you start to spend more money, you have more liabilities, you buy things you don't really need.
Mhm.
And it becomes so complex that you then also have this pressure to keep maintaining a certain lifestyle, right? So that's all why, I think when we make a lot of money from a weak foundation, which is when we make money mainly from ego and self-worth and for more gratification in the moment, it actually can cause even more stress and triggers when it comes to money. So for me, like success with money is about feeling at peace, feeling at ease, and have a deep sense of trust when it comes to money, like no matter how little or how much you have.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the goal too, and the dream for me, is to not like have it worry you so much or be so obsessed with it, but to be able to live your life practically and have your needs met, because that's what money is for, basically. It's very practical in like providing what we need, like
Mhm.
paying for the things that we need. But yeah, it's just like it's such an important thing in the world. It really is. And it's an important thing for everyone. And I just like talking about it because I think there's so much for me to even learn about money and the way that it works in the world, the way that it works in business. And like I was saying to you, the reason we had this conversation, I just had so many question marks pop up in my head when I was seeing all these posts about my, six-figure, seven-figure business, blah, 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 and just wondering, like, what the heck is all this about? Like,
Mhm.
so that's why we're here talking about this. I'm
Mhm.
definitely no money expert, so I have a lot to learn here, I know.
Yeah, and I mean that's what we think. Maybe we are way more experts than we admit ourselves. We don't know really, right?
Maybe.
Because it's just I think we have this idea we are money experts when we have a lot of money. Really?
Mm,
Is that so? I mean, some people are just born into a very wealthy family and have a lot of money. Are they money experts? I don't know, right?
hmm
Maybe everything we are learning right now, I think has so much value also in the context with money, right? And actually
hmm
being energetically detached from making money the source of our success or inner peace or feeling worthy and all of that, right? Because I think that's really the biggest success we can achieve when we are happy no matter what's going on around us, even with money. While of course we also don't want to be like, I don't need money. Because I have experienced this too. I mean, for myself and working with clients was like, no, I just want to help people, but I don't care about the money.
hmm
Almost like push the money away because at least in my case, I have noticed at some point I feel a little bit responsible for how other people got burned from over investing into like, money hook programs.
Yeah.
And then I now need to save them and rescue them because I was in the same similar situation. So I also had to check in with myself, like, hey, like it's not my responsibility. It's actually more of my responsibility to be well financially, whatever that looks like for me, so that I can really give my gifts to the world. Because if I'm struggling financially, I think it's a logic consequence that I cannot freely give, without agenda, my services, my time and everything, as if money would be there a little bit more abundant. Right.
hmm
So, I mean, that's at least where I am at, that I need to continue working on, okay, I am worthy. And hey, maybe it's okay for me to say I want to make six figures or more,
hmm
but because there's still this part of me like, yeah, I don't want to deceive people and overinvest into things I don't even have the money for. But maybe it's also a really good thing to empower people, so some of the what many people are doing out there, there's also a good side to that, to actually show people, hey, this is what's possible, you know
Yeah, because it
it,
is possible. You're right.
yeah, and that's why everything we are, I think we humans, and honestly this is something I'm working on a daily basis, and I'm sometimes amazed how much judgment there is in my head. I wish I could just like let it go of it. And Kabbalah has really helped me with that because it's the words we say and also the thoughts we're thinking. And I mean, it's not like it's there for a reason, but it's the ego, it's our shadow self, right? But I
Yeah.
think once we are aware of it, it's literally like when you go to the gym, it's like you take one step at a time. And okay, I'm aware that I'm judging right now the people that are talking about six, seven figures. Maybe they're actually helping me to realize that that's what I want and this is what's possible for me. I don't have to use it in a way that this person is using it. I'm not making it wrong, but I'm realizing for myself that that's not how I would like to do it, but without making them wrong. Because if I'm being really honest, all of this six, seven figure advertisement has really helped me learn so much about money, about myself, and has helped me heal so many wounds.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool that you identified that. Because it's
Yeah.
true. It's
Yeah.
like to every conversation, there are different perspectives and there's no one right answer, you know? All those themes about the open ajna we talk about or the Ajna Center in human design, it's like there's always another perspective, another way to look at things. That's why
Mm.
having conversations with people is so amazing and helpful because it can really expand. I knew that coming into this conversation. I knew that there's so much more for me to learn about money in this whole conversation, and that's why I wanted to have it, because I know I don't know everything.
Yeah, I think we'll never know everything, neither one of us. So yeah, actually, if you right now say, "Oh, I want to make six figures or seven figures," how does it feel in your body?
I think if I was to say that, one, I don't really need that much money right now, to be totally
Mhm.
honest.
Mhm.
Two, if someone was to offer me that and say, here, no strings attached, just take it, I would be like, yes, of course. I would love to have it. Of course I would. And I don't think it's impossible to make that for me, but I also just don't see that with like the way my work style is right now and how much I work and how much I like to work in what ways. I don't see my business set up for making me that amount of money, at least right now, but I'm still open to it. I'm still trying to grow more and make more money like on an incline than I have been. And so far I have been slowly making it up there. But yeah, that's a good question. How does that feel in my body? I don't know. I think the reality is that I don't really need that right now. So maybe that's why I'm not even there. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I can relate to that a lot because I'm more open to receive if it's meant to be. Because I truly believe we're not all meant to be millionaires.
Yeah.
Right. And I think some of the happiest people, I think there's even some statistics out there. I think it's around 75,000 average income. That's really like the happiness threshold or something like that. Obviously
Mm.
depends where you live because it's true that things have gotten really, really expensive. And but often the happiest people are the ones that have a very simple lifestyle. Some people they love to live in a tiny house where they're not even dependent on grocery stores. I mean, for me, the biggest luxury would be to have my own garden and be able to grow my own food, to be honest. I think that's not even something that money can buy, because yeah, you may have all the money to buy all the fancy stuff in the stores, but if all these stores are going to close tomorrow, so somebody that has cultivated growing a garden, which I don't have, gonna be honest, they're going to be much richer because I mean our health, our well-being, what we feed into our body, that's one of the most important things, right? So
Yeah, you know what, Annalena, I have the best example of just how seeing that reflected in life during the COVID pandemic and lockdown at the beginning. I
mm,
was in the mountains of Peru in sort of this indigenous village, just kind of, I was like volunteer working on this eco lodge, training their horses and just working in the greenhouses and stuff like that. And then the COVID lockdown hit, and I ended up getting locked there for over 6 months.
nice,
And
nice environment. Yeah.
And anyone who's heard this knows it kind of ended up being my dream life. That's another story. But it was a pretty harsh lockdown in Peru. And because of what was happening, there was like martial law and everything. The rules that were happening was like so intense. But we have the cities, and especially Lima, there's a lot of really wealthy people there. That's where a lot of the money is. And where I was, this indigenous community, these people, their income was so, 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 so small. They had their farms and their animals and stuff, but they really didn't have an income. And the way this that I saw this happen was the people in the cities really suffered a lot because everything got locked down. People couldn't leave their apartments, people couldn't leave their homes. It was so restricted, even going to get groceries. A lot of problems started happening, and people were really suffering and struggling. And of course, not everybody in the cities had a lot of money. There's also a lot of poverty, but all those people in the cities were really, really struggling. And what was amazing to see was the people in this community I was in, these mountainside communities, were kind of just living life as normal because they grew their own food, they had their own animals, they worked for themselves, and they had each other. We had each other. And so, although there was a strict lockdown, maybe I shouldn't even say this, we were still having parties and like in the countryside and everyone was socializing and everyone got that like that love and connection that we needed and there wasn't as many mental health issues. People were eating, and I always think about that when I think about who knows what's going to happen in the world, who knows what's going to happen with our systems, our governments, with money. You never know. If you can provide for yourself, of course, also there could be a natural disaster that would wipe out their farm. But if you can provide for yourself and you also have good relationships with the people in your community who can support you, I just see how that is of such benefit. And also, you have such a good lifestyle because you're fit and you're active and you're connected to nature and you have a purpose. And to me, that lights me up and excites me so much. And I feel like that is such a beautiful life to live. Whereas I think also, just because you have money doesn't mean that you're safe from problems either. So yeah.
I had so many goosebumps when you were talking about this. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I guess it's exactly, and I didn't have this experience as vividly as you had it, right? Because I live here in South Florida, and I also have to say, for me, the lockdown was very feasible because I like to spend a lot of time at home, but I was still dependent on the grocery stores and stuff like that. And thankfully, we did have enough here. But that story, it's in a way, this whole lockdown taught us this. Hey, money is not what gives you success and freedom and fulfillment. It's when we become resourceful, right? When we learn to take care of ourselves, of Mother Earth, because I think money has created a very codependent society. I mean, the more we talk about this, we could probably write a book here, right? I mean,
Hope.
yeah, because now, I mean, even as you were talking now, I started to realize that more, like the more money we have, we're like, oh, I can just buy, I can do this, I can have them do it, I can hire somebody. Like
Mhm.
yeah, outsourcing is great, but if you have outsourced everything and just like that, just like when we have a relationship, right, we also have learned not to be too codependent. Like, because I have learned too, in a relationship, we can only have a really romantic relationship when we want to be with each other, but we are okay to be alone, like by ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
it's the same with, I mean, our food supply and everything. The more we're dependent on it, but if you create a network of friends, of like where you support, hey, I'm doing this for you, you're doing this for me, I'm getting you the eggs from the chickens, and I'm making the honey, and there is this, like, how it used to be back in the days, I think, before we created money, and let's be real. I mean, I have said this before, even on this podcast, I think that I can totally imagine there's going to be a world without money at some point. Are we getting ready for that? Maybe. So
Maybe.
in that sense, it's such a gift, I think, where you and I are at, where we are actually learning to thrive without an overabundance of money, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And if that's what we are meant to learn, then that's how it's going to be. I mean, I can fight against it however I want, but yeah, and if it's meant to be, we're going to become millionaires, fine, right? Also
Mhm.
great. I do have this inner knowing, though, that if it's going to be a lot, I really have a big responsibility to do more, yeah, like philanthropic activities in the world, right? Where
Yeah.
the money is really being used to create more sustainable abundance for everyone. Because
Mhm.
we know, right, that Mother Earth can regenerate itself. We have all the technology, all the resources, even to bring back the global warming and all of this, right? It's just like we keep playing the game, I guess, for as long as we think we can. So,
Right.
um, yeah, and as we also see, I mean, all the money, more and more money, more often than not, creates more environmental damage.
Mhm.
And that is actually making the overall collective more poor. It's
Mhm.
such a conundrum, right?
Mhm.
In that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it's such an interesting topic. So another thing I was thinking of that I always think about is, if there was some sort of apocalypse, whatever that looks like, because it's totally possible, whether again, it's another pandemic of some kind or some kind of system totally collapses or I don't know, something happens. I'm like, to me, life it's the university of life and I want to always be learning and gaining new skills and becoming stronger so that whatever situation happens there are different sources of strength that I can rely on, kind of like the people we were talking about who are in the countryside who could rely on themselves. And I always think about, my friend groups or the people who are around me. If this like apocalypse was to happen, what skills and gifts does each person have that we could contribute to all take care of ourselves? And you do need those people who have the money who can help and like give the money, but you also need all kinds of other people, you need people who can speak other languages, you need people who are really fit and healthy and who knows might have to do physical work. You need like all kinds of different abilities and skills to be able to sustain. And that's when we can all come together and work together. And so I also think too, if there are too many people who their one asset that they have is just money, then that's not going to create a balance either.
That's
And I just think about that. Even if you think of like those reality TV shows like Survivor and stuff, people, if you are going to survive somewhere, not that it's always going to be on a desert island, but you're going to need to have different skills to rely on. And health is so important too, to take care of your
totally.
health. That's something I always prioritize. I think that's just as valuable as having money in your bank account. So there
Yeah.
are so many other ways to be of value to the world and yourself, and not just to focus on making money, other things to put your energy into that you never know what's going to happen. You never know when it's going to be needed. Even just to take care of yourself, like being healthy and fit could be something that saves your life one day, and
Yeah.
money might not even be an option. So that's something else to think about.
When you were talking, thank you for sharing that. I love the responding with us. Is that what if that is the whole purpose of, because human design, that's really what human design made me realize. So we're all different. We have these unique skills. And through society, right, we have kind of gone into this like more fabric worker kind of thing where everybody's sitting in an office, being at a computer, and we have like standardized what we're good at. Or, yeah, or having a lot of money is also one of them, right? And I think we are being brought back through to these tools like human design and gene keys to our innate gifts so we can connect with them. For some, it's like speaking, for some, it's like playing music. So other people are in an uplifted mood, right? I always, yeah, I love people that put their music talents out into the world. That's something I follow these days more than anything else on Instagram. And
Hmm.
other people like, yeah, they know how to garden and how to grow stuff. And other people, like you say, they're really strong and they can carry the trees and build a house. And that's exactly what we need. And maybe that's really why all of this is happening also with these personality tools that are left and right and everywhere to help us connect to that so that when the time comes where maybe it's not about the money anymore, we are set up as a society for that, right? Where we can delegate, and it's the versatility of the 16th gene key, right? That comes up for me right now as I'm speaking, which is part, by the way, of the codon ring of prosperity.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
it's like the prosperity from the 16, I mean, the versatility, where we all can bring these unique gifts and talents. And even as persons, I think Richard Watt was even saying that this whole specialization we have fallen into, it doesn't really serve us in the long run because in order to survive, we need to be versatile, even as individual humans.
Hmm.
And I think as a manager, and I always used to judge myself, oh, I'm good at so many different things, right? I mean, which was more intellectual stuff, I have to say. But I think we're all meant to have a versatility of different kind of skills, right? Where I think one of them is, yeah, you need to learn how to work with nature.
Yeah.
And then the 45 is about communion, right? Where the shadow is dominance, where we are like, oh, I'm the boss or the queen or the king, and you're my slaves. I mean, that's not going to work. But in communion, we see everybody in the community and we allow them to follow their unique gifts and talents and support each other and
Hmm.
community, right?
That's why I love these self-discovery tool systems, because it just shows you another perspective of like where your value can come from and what you're meant to be doing. And then it's different for everyone. So you don't have to just like choose one of the pre-prescribed paths. But I love this conversation with you. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you too for your amazing questions and sharing your wisdom and us responding. I think it's really beautiful. And yeah, I hope for everyone that's listening that this helped you a little bit to, especially, if you feel like you're struggling with money, to put you a little bit more at ease that there's a divine plan. We are all being prepared for something, and we have a unique piece in the puzzle, right? And I can just say from my own experience that yes, it's important for me to admit and also that I would like to have more money or access to a little bit more money, but never from a place of like needing it, right? The more I can really lean into being grateful for what I have, really enjoying and trusting the process, I have noticed that, money just organically comes in more abundantly. And it's more about being open to receive and being ready,
Yeah.
abundance that wants to come in. But I think nothing that is from force is sustainable anyways.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we all have a birthright of having an abundant life. And again, abundance is so much more than just the money, right? And I also know many people, even in my case, oftentimes, like you manifest money, but not the actual money. It's through like what you would have had to pay a lot of money for, but it just came into your life. That's the same then, because we always think like I have to work again, the linear cause and effect thing. We're like, yeah, but I have to make the money. Or sometimes people receive a lot of money from an inheritance or somehow that was totally unexpected. And they immediately feel like, yeah, but I didn't make the money and kind of push it away. Like, I think we have to let go of, you know, thinking that we need to know or decide how the money is going to come to us because let's think about it. It's one possibility of millions. Let the universe show you how the abundance and the money is going to come into your life.
Hmm.
From the work you do that you think you're going to make the money, that's just one of many, many, many
Hmm.
possibilities of how money can come in. So yeah, it's more being open to receive and letting life surprise you and show you how the abundance can flow into your life, into your business, into the world. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's my closing statement.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm just happy about this conversation because it's like something that I will endlessly explore, but I've loved this and I think it's just important to talk about it more, so I'm glad that we did and hopefully it sparks more conversations in other people as well, just to like think more critically about it and what your relationship is to it and what really is important and understanding that there are other things that are important as well and just thinking also about, what you are sharing with people and maybe putting out there when you're putting out those different things like that initiated this conversation, like those posts, like what's the intention behind that? Obviously those have sparked this conversation, so like we're only growing, but
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. I think it's so important, right? When we put anything out there, is this actually contributing to the world? Is this actually in integrity with my heart when we put out things? Yeah, I love it.
mhm.
So also very thankful for this conversation with you and really grateful for your listeners that you tuned in. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna share Tara's website or Instagram. So if you would love to connect with her, she's an amazing human design reader and as you know, beautiful human. So I definitely invite you to connect with her. And is there anything else on your heart that you wanted to share?
No, not really not. I shared everything I wanted to. I'm also so grateful for everyone listening and just love to continue to explore life through having conversations like this. So thank
Mm.
you, Annalena.
Yeah, you're welcome. And my final, that's one thing on my heart. I just invite you all to talk to money and talk about money in a like you're talking to a friend, right? And just work on improving your relationship with money and not just make it about the amount of money and actually see all the beautiful ways that money has come into your life. So that's my little tip for that because that has been quite magical for myself because the more loving I am with money, I feel like I'm also the more open to receive it more into my life because if you think about it, right, if I only talk bad about money, like who wants to hang out with me? And
Yeah.
if I can talk and also be vulnerable, like I mean, I think you can talk if you can tell money like, hey, I'm pissed or I'm frustrated, what do I do wrong? Like be authentic with money. I think money's energy is gonna really appreciate that. And yeah, so talk more to money. I think that's my little tip. So thank you again, Tara. This was such a delight, and I'm sure your listeners are absolutely enjoying this conversation. And as always, I'm very excited and honored to be with you all on the next episode. Bye, everyone.